Nobody said that. Okay.
No, I know. I just have a printout here, so. So many times. Yeah. Yeah, that's coming out this year. Yeah. What? I still think we should do an opera style.
Okay, 241. Okay. Everybody turn to 241.
This is down in your handbook, but it should be.
Well, you'll note the note that I put next to it. Because Tim was wondering if we could find a way to spin this so it fit into the theme. I said, yeah, just think about a grandfather clock.
One, two, three, four.
we ever have enough of it, so we'll get into that. But I want to welcome you to Jazz Sanctuary, whether you've been here before many times or this is your first time, welcome. If you need restrooms at any time, there is actually one right through this door to the left, or you can head back out into the lobby, and they're through the double sets of double doors on the right-hand side. There's also goodies out yonder and things to drink. Please feel free to refresh yourselves. Get up, dance, laugh, smile, whatever you need to do as the Spirit moves you while you're here. And also this service is a gift to all of you. And if you feel so moved to pass it on, the offering this month and next month will both be going to the Christmas Fund, which is a part of the United Church of Christ through the pension boards. There's information about it on the back. But essentially it supports pastors who are currently serving with funds, but it also supports ministers who are retired, widows and widowers. It's a wonderful, wonderful fund. So if you feel so moved, please feel free to put some money in the basket on your way out. Would you like to introduce people? Okay, do you want the microphone? You don't have to.
Because I would knock something over.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Plenty of time for that thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always so grateful to have the musicians that volunteer their time to come and be with us here at Jazz Sanctuary. And this month is no exception. We have a special jazz guest with us today, but this isn't his first time, it's his third time with us. Joey Placenti, who's playing Halstead. You know, we're going to double your pay.
Yes.
I'm so blessed.
For some of you who have heard the Tall Granite Big Band, which played here Friday night, Joey is our musical director of that 18-piece band and does an amazing job of herding all those cats. So we're so glad to have him and Brenda and Jason with us, his wife and son today too. So thank you so much for coming. Also, I can never thank enough the guys from the Wildman Jazz Sanctuary band, Jock Irvin on bass, and Ed West. And while I guess a lot of instrumental musicians might say not every singer they've ever worked with would they necessarily call a musician. I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Emilia is a musician. Later we're going to have the pleasure of having some conversation with Reverend Dr. Emilia Geoghegan, a long time friend and pastoral counseling colleague who does her pastoral counseling ministry at Pastoral Counseling Services in Manchester and has for many years. She also served the church in Dunbarton for a bunch of years, like 13, 14, 15 years. And just completed about a year ago a 3-year interim at the Hooksett Congregational Church. So she brings with her lots of wisdom, especially she's been trained at the UMass Medical Center, a special training program for people in mindfulness meditation. And she's going to bring that wisdom to us today about time and time out of time, as is what happens when you are mindful and meditate. So thank you for being here, Emily, and your community.
Thank you. So the theme for today jumped out of this little book here by Mitch Albom called The Timekeeper, and I highly recommend picking up a copy. It's a super fast read. Mitch has a really wonderful way of writing that's not overly involved or long, but is just so poignant with some of his shorter phrasing. So yeah, it isn't a myth about Father Time, but it touches on so many incredibly important points, always, but especially now. So I invite you to join with me in our call to worship, which is pulled as an excerpt from this book. Herein lies every moment of the universe, the old man said. You sought to control time. For your penance, the wish is granted.
He tapped his staff on the hourglass, and it formed a golden top and bottom with 2 braided posts. Then it shrank into a vertical horizon.
never too late or too soon. It is when it is supposed to be. He smiled. There is a plan, door. So this is a table of welcome, and all are free to come and to eat. We gather at this table and together to worship as we remember these words of our brother Jesus. I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger. Whoever believes in me shall never thirst.
We come to this table hungry and thirsty, seeking to be satisfied. As we gather at this table, we remember these words of our brother Jesus. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.
We come to this table weary and burdened and seeking rest, wishing we didn't care so much about time. As we gather at this table, we remember that Jesus comes to us, in those who are strangers to us, in those who are hungry, in those who are thirsty, and in those who need warmth.
We come to this table as strangers in a strange land. We ask with humble confidence that you welcome us into your family, O God.
Will you join us for the prayer of adoration?
Living God, you are present in our midst, and we praise you. You are tearing down walls of alienation and exclusion. For this we praise you, because in Jesus you have shown us a way of hospitality, simplicity, prayer, peacemaking, and resistance. Because your Spirit makes a new path for us, hope. Lover of our souls, you give us joy, and we praise you. Amen.
Amen. So we take joy in this meal, where we give our love and our attention to each other, and remember too that Jesus is here with us. And that in the midst of this sacred meal, we set 3 symbols to remind us of Jesus' promises to us.
A candle to remind us that Jesus poured out his Holy Spirit upon us, giving us new life, new power, and new hope. We filled with his Spirit, being the presence of God in a broken world, give rejoicing.
Amen. We bring bread, for Jesus is the bread of life. He nourishes us, and we put our trust in him. There they are.
And grapes, a reminder of his struggle for justice and peace, a reminder of his suffering at the hands of the Roman Empire. Jesus suffers still when the oppressed suffer injury at the hands of the powerful.
Jesus is with us in this agape feast. Let us open our hearts to God and to one another. And as we share this feast, we invite you to really focus on allowing other people to serve you, and then also to serve them. So, for example, I'm going to hold the plate entirely while Tim chooses his bread and his grapes. He's not going to help me hold the plate, because we do it all the time. Because it's hard to be served. So just allow the other person to hold it, and then I'm going to ask the next person, who, to hold the grape and the bread for me, so I can do the same thing. Let us share in the feast of love. You want to pass it?
Okay.
Sure. There you go. You were in the moment.
Enjoy that follow directions.
Hey, Tim, that's okay. Just chew for it.
I know, that's okay, better not. It's always
It's not a pretty thing.
No, I'm sure.
As good and you
the Koine Greek, there are two words for time, many words, but two words that were most commonly used for time. One was chronos, from which we get the root for like chronological, and the other was kairos, which meant essentially fullness of time. And today we're going to be contrasting the chronos, the chronological time that tortures and enslaves most of us from time to time in our lives. We're going to be contrasting that with the kairos, the fullness of time, which is a moment that's possible at any time in the midst of time, as we are aware and mindful. So this reading from the Gospel of Luke is really Jesus teaching about that kairos, that fullness of time. Once Jesus was asked by the Pharisees when the kingdom of God was coming, and he answered, "The kingdom of God is not coming with things that can be observed, nor will they say, 'Look, here it is,' or 'There it is.' For in fact, the kingdom is among you," or within you.
change to the bulletin that you guys don't have. We've got 3 segments for our second reading that I'm gonna read from the Timekeeper, and in between numbers 2 and 3, we're gonna put what was placed at the end there. We've got a whole new song for you for the end, because we like surprises. So, he's never surprised, I'm not either. Improv is always lovely. So I'm gonna invite you to join me in the first phrase of these first 2 readings. Try to imagine a life without timekeeping. You probably can't. You know the month, the year, the day of the week. There was a clock on your wall or the dashboard of your car. You have a schedule, a calendar, a time for a dinner or a movie. All around you, timekeeping is ignored. Birds are not late. A dog does not check its watch. Deer do not fret over passing birthdays. Humanity alone measures time. Humanity alone chimes the hour. And because of this, humanity alone suffers a paralyzing fear that no other creature endures. A fear that time is running out. Consider the word time. We use so many phrases with it. Pass time, waste time, kill time, lose time in good time, about time, take your time, save time, a long time, right on time, oh, time, mind the time, be on time, spare time, keep time, stall for time. There are as many expressions with time as there are minutes in a day. But once, there was no word for it at all, because no one was counting. Then door began, and everything changed. We do time after time. This is a new law reversal. This is where we're injecting this. Yeah.
One, two, 1, 2,
3 readings from the Timekeeper. Door, Father Time, removed his hands from Sarah's eyes. They watched the van drive down the snowy street. You had many more years, he said. I didn't want them, she replied. But they wanted you. Time is not something you give back. The very next moment may be an answer to your prayer. To deny that is to deny the most important part of the future. What's that? Hope.
Fall 17. Even though this is written in 3, we're going to do it in 4. Just because we can.
Because you have time.
We musicians,
It's all
us.
about time.
This is a very confusing group of people.
Yeah. Orange is pink. And, yeah. Emily to come up now and share with us about her experience of time and mindfulness and why this is all very important.
Are you conversing with me?
I will converse with you,
Well,
yes.
Great.
Would you like to sit down? Or you can stand, it's entirely up to you.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
Many good friends. So, a couple of synchronistic things have happened so far today.
Okay.
Synchronicity is an interesting thing about time. The most recent one is on my wedding ring is inscribed Time After Time. That's a very important song for me in my marriage. And then this morning, I'm like a millennial, I'm gonna come up here with my phone.
Yeah.
You know how kids, when I was at Hooksett, as Tim was mentioning, as an interim minister a few years ago, we had a confirmation class, and the kids got up to make their confirmation statements and read from their cell phones.
Yes.
But it is a different world. But this morning, one of the daily readings I do is from Richard Rohr, a Franciscan priest. Did people see it this morning? It was Living in the Now was his theme. And I'll just read the first couple of quotes. Embrace the present moment as an ever-flowing source of holiness, by Jean-Pierre de Causseau. And then an Eckhart Tolle quote, which reminded me of your call to worship today. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at the moment. So it begins to get into the, this whole idea of the timekeeper and the setting up time gets us into a very dualistic state. And things like these synchronistic moments, or these spiritual writers have been writing about this thing called mindfulness for millennia. And it's a way to get out of the dualistic thinking and begin to live a life in a more unitive way. And I had mentioned a couple of synchronistic things that have happened so far today, Tim. And one of those things that gets us out of the dualistic way we approach life and into a more unitive way.
Yeah. One of the things I love about this book, or loved about my reaction to this book, is that I got really mad at Father Time really fast. The way he tells the story is so brilliant, because I just wanted to tear the pages to shreds. Stop counting! Because the whole notion is that there was people didn't worry about, you moved with the seasons. The sun set and you went to sleep. The sun got up and you got up. And then he started keeping track. Okay, well, how many steps am I taking? And how many drops of water before nighttime comes? And, et cetera, et cetera. And it certainly became very aware to me how much I'm frustrated with our counting and the keeping of time and keeping of schedule. And even, when we had Delfeo Marcellus playing here, who's from New Orleans, there's a very different time, the way time is kept in New Orleans, and Hawaii, and other places. It's not just in those two places. But you don't start a worship service until everybody shows up. We're going to start at 10-ish. And when everybody shows up at 11, then you start. In this part of the world, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Think about time.
Yeah.
There's a great quote from the 6th century BC, from the Tao Te Ching, when Lao Tzu said, "Practice not doing, and everything will fall into place." And that, again, is so counterintuitive for us, because either we don't have enough time, so we're rushing, or we have too much time. There are a lot of people that don't know how to fill the time. So the not doing, you think this is one of these enigmatic things, practice not doing and everything will fall into place. But it's in the not doing that people begin to touch that sense of eternity and the not divided up time, and that's where the inner peace is, which exists outside of time. And the training that I had that Tim mentioned was at UMass Medical Center with John Kabat-Zinn, who was a molecular biologist, of all things, a researcher there. And he was at a silent retreat, doing a Buddhist retreat, and practicing the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, really immersed very deeply in silence and in those Buddhist traditions. And he thought, if I could take these concepts, I think it would really help the suffering of the people at UMass Medical Center. So he went back there in 1979 and started this stress reduction program. And it's been phenomenally successful. And what's great about it is that it's taking all of these concepts out of all the religious traditions. And he was a researcher, so he did the empirical testing. He quantified that these things work, that people not only got inner peace, they didn't care so much about that, but that it health improved, blood pressure went down. And it's that shifting. And so when I teach these programs, mindfulness-based stress reduction, people say, well, I don't have enough time to meditate. And it's not about, well, you probably really need it if that's what you're saying, but it doesn't take any more time. It's this shifting of attitude, the kind of the non-striving, the being patient, that just, the birds aren't late, just getting a different relationship. So a lot of the practices are just, getting into the present moment, being aware of the breath, being aware of ourselves actually inside our bodies.
And experiencing that. One of the folks who's been doing the reading through the Bible with us here is Buddhist, and one of the things she was experiencing or sharing with us when we got through almost to the end of the Bible, we're almost there, we're almost to Revelation.
Wow.
But she was noticing as a Buddhist that there isn't anything in the Bible that teaches how to do mindfulness. It talks about Jesus going away to the mountain by himself to pray, or going away. Since nobody went with him, there was never this chance to learn, and it was never put into the Gospels or any of the letters, here's what I suggest for how to meditate, or how to find that space to do the practice of doing nothing. So,
well, that's why I think the Buddhist practices are so helpful as a being, to really, they give you this step-by-step instruction, and that's really helpful. And psychologically, I just find it very helpful. Another great image that I use a lot, Rachel Naomi Remen is a doctor and also a storyteller, and she tells this wonderful story about in trying to get at this concept of how we get so distracted and so busy. She talks about how in bullfighting, the matador, the matador with the red, waving the red cape around, is trying to keep the bull from getting to this place that's called the querencia. And that when the bull can get in this querencia, it's a centered place. And there's sort of no stopping the bull. That's that just getting centered and being completely present. So the matador's job is to keep the bull from getting to that place. So when I do workshops or retreats, we do a lot of, who's the matador in your life? What are the distractions? And where is your querencia? Because when we get to that place where we are centered and grounded, that's where we get out of time and into timelessness. That's when we're aware the kingdom of God is within. That's where we're aware we're not separate. And all of these contemplative practices, we hear about it happening in the Bible, but we're not given the
here's
this
how.
and then you do this. They're all about getting out of that dualistic separateness and being one with God and knowing that we are one.
Together.
So I guess that might be a way to open the conversation, is if you have places that are your querencia, and it can be walking the dog, it can be sitting silently during the day, and what are the distractions in your life? Who's the matador waving the red flag that is constantly keeping you off balance from being in that centered place? And I just find that image really helpful. What's pulling me away, and what helps me be in that place of being centered and grounded. So I guess I would just throw open that question if anyone, and sometimes what people say is very helpful.
For me, I need quiet.
Quiet.
Just quiet. No music.
I
On my matador. If I don't have that, I can't ever get there.
I am the red flag.
Constant distraction.
I want to counter that though. Music is my of where I go
And dream.
meditate. It takes me out of the element of the norm and distractions and stuff. And being within the fellowship of musicians to where I can place myself at that level, and distractions are still out there, but they can't get to me because I'm in that zone, and people, I've had a couple of people say it's like you're in a different dimension, you're just in a different zone, and it is. And that's probably the biggest thing. It's helped me survive life in general, because I've had that option. I've been blessed with that ability to do that.
Thank you.
second actress, my father was a trumpet player and I was a disc jockey, not much in the radio, but at a point in Nashville. But music surrounds me all the time, but I do like peace in bed, no music, but it has made my life, the second your opinion is, this keeps you on track.
Yeah.
You said how people say they don't have time to meditate. And years and years ago, I learned how to meditate. And it was interesting because I discovered the times that I took to meditate, I had more time during the day.
Yeah.
When I didn't take the time to meditate, I never had enough time.
Yeah.
Because I think those distractions keep pulling us rather than us living in a centered way.
It's being
Wonderful.
broken.
Thank you.
Yeah. Others?
To say, I struggle very much with maintaining an awareness of my breathing. I have this monkey mind that just jump. I can put about 10 breaths together and then I'm all of a sudden taking one thought after another, and I can't come to deal with that. I can't make that go away.
It's not about making it go away. That's what the mind does. The mindfulness is being aware of the monkey mind and coming back to the breath. And what I talk about, it's like training a puppy. The puppy is naturally going to be off, exploring in the corners, and we patiently and kindly invite the puppy to come back and sit. So the training is just bringing back to the breath. And if you got 10 breaths in a row, you're doing better than I do. You're doing better than most people.
The most I ever do.
That's on a good day, right?
Yeah, 5 on a good. And what they're finding with the brain research is that there is this thickening of this certain part of the brain, and that just coming back again is this patiently beginning again. And just observing what the mind is doing really is mindfulness.
Yeah.
In the last couple of days, I read something or heard something about, as I had the same problem with whatever, and it was like, go to the dark side, go to the body, get away from the mind, and focus that
In here.
in here.
Yeah.
Oh my
What a
goodness.
difference.
Right, get out of the head.
Drop into your heart. Yep, Kyle Cease, who's become one of my favorite speakers, authors, he used to be a comedian, talks about that. But don't, the biggest learning for me, and that is not to separate out the mind and to belittle the mind, to berate your mind for the things it thinks, but rather his phrase is hypothetically, my mind is terrified that I'm going to trip and fall before I leave this door. And I love that. That's the phrase. To end every time you call out what your mind is really afraid of. I am so afraid that I'm going to be in debt the rest of my life. And I love that. And it drops it back into your heart, where you're honoring what your mind is worried about and what's going on upstairs, but really allowing your body to center down into your heart center.
Dropping into the body. And mindful walking is a real part of retreats, and it's really just walking and paying attention to the bottoms of your feet. And when you're really paying attention to the bottoms of your feet, you get out of your head. So there are many ways to work with that.
Yeah, there's a wonderful book that I recommend highly about the Christian tradition of contemplative prayer. In the Protestant tradition, one of the downsides of the Reformation, starting 500 years ago, is that we got up in our head and we almost never got out.
It's true.
And we're trapped up there.
Yeah, we are.
And whereas I think the Roman Catholic and Orthodox traditions have had other ways to keep us more grounded in all things. And there's a wonderful book called Into the Silent Land that I'm indebted to Fran and Frank Irvin for giving me, turning me on to. And I have read it about 5 or 6 times now. And the beautiful thing for me about the book is that in the very beginning, he reminds us that the idea of meditating or prayer or mindfulness or breathing is to remind ourselves of the truth that God is already around us and within us, and God is waiting for us. And these are all just ways to clear out the stuff so we can get to what's there already and has always been there, and that's God's.
Yeah, it's Martin Laird. wrote that.
Martin Laird.
Yes, yes. That book, Into the Silent Land.
Yeah. I've seen one of my credences is the sounds of nature. So whether it's the ocean, the waves, or waterfalls, I can sit next to a waterfall for days.
That's a great way to get out of monkey mind too, when you're really listening to something. You actually can't be all, because thoughts are kind of loud in there.
They are so
You're
loud.
listening to something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To focus on it.
Carol.
I know for me, it's much easier for me to get to a very centered place after I've done yoga or after I've done exercise. I've somehow I'm sort of very body-centered, so if I pay attention to doing something body-centered first, and then move into meditation, that's often great, with the distractions.
Sure. Actually, Emily, I wanted to ask you, this is something I've been wondering about lately, is when we're talking about monkey mind and that space, how much of it is our sense of being unworthy? Unworthy to take the time for ourselves to have that space, to take that moment to be with God, because I don't deserve it. And it's just something new for me that I've been pondering, and how much of that it's, yeah, I know I need to, but I don't deserve it.
I think that's huge, and I think a lot of the striving and the I should be this and that. John Kabat-Zinn tells a story about this cardiologist who at 40 had decided he wasn't where he should be in his career, so he started to drive himself harder, and that he actually wrote a book, Is It Worth Dying For? At 44 he had a major heart attack, and so he was a stress researcher, and he said, well, I'm healthy, and there's longevity in my family, it's, you know, it's a great scenario, but it's that I should be something other than I am, or I should be somewhere else, and that's the first thing in mindfulness, is accepting life as it is in this moment. That's part of the serenity prayer when you go further down. Accepting this world as it is, not as I would have it. Accepting ourselves as we are. Accepting our monkey mind as it is. And once we accept it, it begins to settle down. So I think that acceptance of ourselves as we are, and this they say mindfulness is like a two-winged bird. One side is awareness and one side is compassion.
Oh, nice.
So bringing compassion to yourself is always a good thing.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Other thoughts that you have about time or mindfulness? Things that jump out for you? Yes,
I did take a course at the hospital in mindfulness.
Great.
And they would take your blood pressure before you went in. And after the mindfulness course that we did at that time, we came out, they did your blood pressure, and it does drop, it really does.
It really does. Yes.
Yeah. And I find, with me, if you go back into your childlike ways, when you didn't worry about everything, and you take in nature, you check, you watch that bird flying, or that redbird across the street, and you watch that butterfly, and you see the beauty of the earth all around you, even the leaves that change, and everything. Don't let that child leave you, because that reduces stress.
Right.
Absolutely, a beginner's mind,
Yeah,
seeing everything with wonder.
Keep that child within you.
Be like a child to enter the kingdom of God.
That's right. Yeah, I love watching children hunker down in one space. You talk about going for a walk in nature. Nope. You're going to pick them in one spot. They will squat down and just be there for hours, playing with the rocks and the sticks.
And the dogs do that.
The
You
dogs
got a
do.
dog.
I do.
You have a puppy? Are you training a puppy?
I am. She's 2, but yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Emily. Thank you, everybody.
We'll just follow on the way. Because it's our prayer.
Yeah, speaking of mindfulness, we're going to do the next song, and feel free to drop in to your heart center, whatever feels good right now. This is kind of, mostly because it becomes much of a chant in the verses as we get through this. So, yeah.
One of the few things that we're going to try and do repeatedly from month to month.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Because we like it.
We do. God, we come to you in this time seeking your presence, seeking to lift up the prayers that we brought with us today, prayers of deep joy and prayers of sorrow and sadness, especially in this week of Thanksgiving. We also seek to offer our prayers of gratitude. So I invite you, dear people gathered, to lift up your prayers either aloud if you are comfortable or in your hearts. We lift up prayers for all who live in the Caribbean ring. They are still trying to rebuild their lives from all the hurricanes, and also in Florida and in Texas, and in the church community in Texas that suffered its recent tragedy. Dear God, we pray. We also offer prayers for the people of Zimbabwe. They are going through such a turmoil time, gracious God. We ask that you would fill the leaders and all of their people with peace. And I know we also lift up prayers for our own country. We are working through so much pain, so much agony and fear and hatred that we've been stuffing under the carpet, under the rug for so long. And since we finally pulled back the carpet, we finally see it all, we're so surprised. And it's breaking our hearts. But I would ask that you fill us with hope, because we are finally airing these things that need to be talked about. Thank you, God. Thank you for all of the blessings that you have given us. The air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the clothes we wear, the beds that we sleep in, and the love that you give us, and the love that you teach us to share with one another. Even as we share together the prayer that Jesus first taught us, as is printed in your bulletin, saying together, O birther, Father, Mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us, make it useful. Create your reign of unity now, through our fiery hearts and willing hands. Help us love beyond our ideals, and sprout acts of compassion for all creatures. Animate the earth within us. We then feel the wisdom underneath, supporting all. Untangle the knots within, so that we can mend our hearts' simple ties to each other. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back from our true purpose. Out of you, the astonishing fire, returning light and sound to the cosmos. Amen. Thank you for being here today. And as you go through this week of Thanksgiving, I invite you to create space for yourself. Take your watch off, put your cell phone off, be in a room where there's no clock or calendar, and just be. One of my favorite meditations, guided meditations, is to feel the spaciousness, to feel how far out you can feel. And when I'm in my heart center, I start touching things like the Eagle Nebula. So allow yourself to be aware in this time with our gratitude that you are a part of the whole universe. You are made of stardust. And I invite you to share that space and that spaciousness with everyone you meet. Amen.
Could I say a word about
Tim would like to explain our closing song.
I know it's supposed to be true that I can reframe anything, which might be true. But another thing that's come, I think, from the Protestant Reformation is that our images of God got way too narrow over time. And you may know that the term Abba, which is used in the Aramaic for God, really means daddy. It's a very intimate term. And I like to think that if you have an experience of union with all the stardust that is, and with God, that it's not only a good thing, but an awesome thing, and that it ought to make us feel happy and joyful, and actually laugh, and like it's a party. So that's where I'm going with this. So our closing number is, "Come on, baby, let the good times roll."
That's the longest introduction I've had. I feel so educated.
Yeah, Martin Luther would be rolling over in his grave right now. Hoo-ah!
That's why it took 500 years to get there.
Trying to get there, yeah.
One, two, three.
Come on, baby, let the good times roll. Come on, baby, let them thrill your soul. Come on, baby, let the good times roll. Roll all night long. Come on, baby, yes, this is
Pardon? Jerry, are you still doing yoga? There's a base over there. Yeah, I went to some classes years ago.